This is Heartrepreneur Radio, maximizing your personal and business results by leading with your heart. With your host, Terri Levine. Listen every week as Terri tackles the topics that will help you become a successful heart-centered entrepreneur. Be sure to read the blog posts at www.heartrepreneur.com/blog. Come back often and add this show to your favorite RSS feed or subscribe in iTunes. You can also follow Terri on Twitter at MentorTerri and on Facebook.com/Heartrepreneur Terri Levine. And now here's Terri.
Hello and welcome to Heartrepreneur Radio and TV show with Terri Levine. I'm your co-host Velma Gallant and I'm excited to be here today. You can connect with Terri, me, and other like-minded heart-based business owners in the Heartrepreneurs with Terri Levine Facebook group. I look forward to seeing you there and go check it out. If you like this show and any of our other shows, please be sure to like it. And we always love the 5-star reviews. Today's quote: "The best way to predict the future is to create it." Abraham Lincoln. Really a very appropriate quote for today's guest. Our show topic today is future vision, how to anticipate and thrive in a time of change. Our special guest today is Jirsch. Anne is a futurist and intuitive and has spent many decades studying the process of intuition and how it actually works. She pioneered future life progression, a process where you mind travel into the future to find your best way forward right now. Imagine having a genius idea in the future and being able to tap into it right now. Imagine knowing how your intuition works so that you can use it whenever you wish. So welcome to the show, Anne.
Thank you. Thank you for the warm welcome.
So I really am curious. So I mean, intuition is something that, like that gut feeling, the little bit of knowing, that kind of thing that can come in and show up. How did you connect? How did you get into the idea of being a futurist and an intuitive? How did that show up for you?
Right. Well, what happened was my grandmother was a fortune teller. So she would predict the future for people. She would read the tea leaves in the East End of London. And I used to stay with her when I was a kid. And I wanted to be like my nan. So I used to sit and try and have premonitions and know things. And I never ever did. You know, people have these wonderful stories. When I was a child, I saw an angel and this. I never had anything. I never got it right once, so not even by fluke. But I knew it worked. So many people would pop in and go. She lived on a housing estate, and so they were quite poor, and they'd had some struggle times. And so people would pop in and go, "Oh, Win, you said this," and they would feed back. So I'd hear the feedback, and I knew it worked. It just wasn't working for me. So that's actually worked out very beneficial, because if you do something naturally, you don't know how you do it. I had to go in search. So back then I went off to India in my teens in search of enlightenment, in search of spirituality. And it was the thing to do back then. You go back to the 60s, it was the thing to do. The Beatles went off there, as we thought this must be the right thing. So I went off and not a lot happened. I went to ashrams and I sat there and I just found it really hard meditation, because I'm a fidget. I'm not very good. I'd sit there and I'd keep peeping and scratching my nose. I'm just not very good at sitting still. But I had an amazing experience. I met a beggar and he ended up my guru. It's the most bizarre thing. I went to all these great gurus and I didn't get anywhere. And I met this beggar and he started to explain to me how it all worked. And I thought it was all new stuff. I was so naive, because you got to remember, back in the 60s, there weren't books in your local bookstore. You couldn't Google anything. You just caught the odd glimpse of something, or somebody had mentioned something. Mm-hmm. We were so hungry for knowledge. But by the time I came back, my intuition had opened up. But since then, I've carried on studying how it actually works, and how your intuition works might be very different from how my intuition works. That we might have a completely different process, but once you know, it alerts you much more. It's more usable. I want to be able to use my intuition whenever I want. I mean, we all have experiences of oh, God, I just had a bad feeling about something, or worried about my cousin. Then I found out he'd had an accident. Everyone has that. Even skeptics will tell you incidences. But I wanted to be able to say, hang on, I'm about to go into a business deal, or my brother's met a new girl. I want to be able to use my intuition when I want, not just when there's a flash of inspiration.
Right. Okay. I get that. I know for me, my body talks to me quite a bit. Right.
Yeah.
And so when it's a yes, I get that elated kind of feeling. And when it's a no, some of them have been so bold in the way my body has talked to me. It's like my legs feel so heavy. I feel like I'm going to fall through the floor.
Amazing.
And, I know one time when I was writing an email and I kept deleting it and writing it and deleting it. Yeah. And I was actually at work, which was in a, 12-story building or something like that. And I was, up on a higher floor. And my legs felt so heavy as I'm writing this email that I honestly felt like I was going to fall right down to the ground floor.
Yeah.
And it didn't stop until I deleted that email and stopped writing it. And then it was like, oh.
That is exactly, it's very often a physical sensation. It's very, and you've literally summed up the chapter of my last book. That is exactly how I've got a chapter on how your body knows, and it is often a physical sensation. I interviewed an ex-soldier, ex-policeman, and he said when there was danger around, he'd feel like there was a tight band around his head. He went and got checked for blood pressure in the end, because he'd think, but when he was in the army and he found himself in a field of landmines, he went through fields for 2 days. He'd go into this particular field, and all of a sudden that tight band, we went to stop the vehicle. And they had to sit there for 2 days while they found it was the only field with landmines. But we all have that. It's that physical thing. But the thing is, sometimes it's subtle. Like you had a strong reaction there, with your legs feeling heavy. Sometimes it's subtle and we miss it because we're so busy, aren't we? And we've got so many things going on with sensory overload, information overload. But any time your legs start to feel even a bit heavy, you go, hang on. What was I just talking about? What was I about to do? So it's examining the good feelings and the bad feelings and how we process them. So you've already marked yours out. It's one of the things I teach people to do. Think of the times it went well. What was going on? What was you feeling? Was it a picture in your head? Was it feeling in your gut? Was it a good feeling? Was it warm? Was it hot? Was it cold? We break down the feeling. We actually find the submodalities of intuition, but you've already done that. That's brilliant, because that is your warning. That is your alarm bell that's saying to you, hang on a minute. Mine's hesitating is a big one with me. There's times when I just steam on in, but when I keep hesitating, it's saying, hang on a minute, hang on. I often find with people when they keep dithering, something there is pulling them back a little bit, going, hang on a minute, you sure about this?
Okay, that makes a lot of sense, because I know so what I'm hearing is sometimes procrastination is your intuition, and not just I'm a procrastinator.
Yeah, I mean, why are you holding back? What is it that's holding you? What's making you hesitate? And sometimes, a lot of the time, it is something that just doesn't feel right. So, say a lot of it is study. People are trying to learn far too much. They're learning everything that's going, and so. Stop, and you find there's one where you really want to learn it. I really ought to learn. But you keep holding back. Maybe it's not the right thing for you, because if it was, you'd steam in. You'd be excited by it. You'd be drawn to it.
Exactly. And I know that when there are action steps that I'm rifling into and just moving on, that I'm headed in the right direction. And if I'm stalling, there's maybe something that I need to look at. Maybe the timing is incorrect.
Yeah. Yes.
Maybe there's details that I haven't gotten yet to be able to move forward. So what you're sharing really makes a lot of sense to me.
Brilliant. I love intuition, because when we start understanding how we process information, we've got it there whenever we want. We can just stop, and even if it's really subtle, we can go, hang on, what is it I'm feeling right now? Is this a green light? Is it a red light? What am I getting here? Do I need to find out more information, ask more questions? We start to really break it down. It makes a huge difference in life.
It does. And I know, like I mentioned, my red light and my green light. But what about those yellow lights? And that's where I think the procrastination, as we're talking, is one of my yellow lights, to say it's not a no, but it's not quite a yes yet.
I had a situation some years ago. I had a property overseas, and I sleep well, and I started to wake up in the night worrying about it, and I had nothing to worry about. I mean, it was an amazing place, but something kept bothering me, and I was in a lot of turmoil. So in the end, I went to one of my soldier friends. I find military people very intuitive, and in my books I mentioned, like, I've worked a lot with military guys, and I trust them a lot. And so one of them said, look, there isn't a major problem, but you're being told this for a reason. Anyway, I sold the property, and 3 months later, the country it was in, the economy just collapsed. I'd have been in such a difficult situation. But what was going on? My intuition was niggling me, but emotionally I was going, no, don't make me sell it. I want to keep it. I love it. So that love life is the best one for that, isn't it? Intuition's going, be careful. And you go, oh, but he's so cute. Really careful.
Yeah, I don't know anybody who argues with their intuition.
So that's it. We can have that clash with our emotions and what we want. So we don't always listen. But I love it. And you mentioned gut. When I was working on the last book, I got stopped in my tracks by the multiple brains. I started to realize that some of us are gut-based, some of us are heart-based, some of us are head-based. We need to be using all three. And that, I got so into that subject, and I started researching, and I started digging in deeper, and I started to notice what brain people were using. That became mind-blowing. That actually halted up my writing for quite some time, because I got so into it. It was just such an incredible subject. And a lot of people in the spiritual field, because obviously you're heart-based from your what you do, it's wonderful. You help a lot of people, but you can also get people use you, and you can also not be business-like enough. And so what I started to do was work with all three, try and bring in all three, try and get the information. We need to be heart-based. We definitely need more heart-based business in this time we're living in, if we need anything. But a lot of people in the spiritual field get a bit frustrated because they're not using their head for making a plan. They're not using their gut for taking action, and they're giving everything away. They want to save the world, and they get frustrated they're not moving forward. So by using all three, we get a much better balance to what we're doing. And we can actually do more. We can actually do more when we've got a plan. We can help more people and use our heart energy more once we got a plan, and once we structure and take some steps forward. And that absolutely blew me away, the multiple brains. That absolutely, really, because I found I wasn't using my heart brain a lot, which considering I worked in a spiritual field for 45 years, is surprised me, but I just wasn't. I was going from gut to head. And I was overprotecting myself, because in my early days, I had so many people kind of phoning me morning, noon and night, and, really, really taking liberties. I really had a tough time in my early days. I had a lot of takers around me. That I think I stopped using the heart brain so much, and I didn't realize I'd done that. It's really, I was kind of overprotecting myself. So I didn't get drawn into people's dramas that I weren't feeling too much. So I had to go back and actually get more in touch with my heart again after all these years. It was the weirdest things. But yeah, the brains also come into and you said gut-based, which is why you've got a show, why you've set it up, because gut, you've taken the action. You've taken action to set this up in a structure. You're not just sitting there with your heart going, I want to save the world, not doing anything. You've set something up to spread information that people can listen to and that can help them. So,
and it's quite interesting because science backs that up.
Yeah.
Right. We have neurons in our gut, in our heart, and in our brain. So it's actually science-based how they are brains.
Yeah.
Each of them is a brain for us.
Everything that you would call the component of your head brain, you've got the same in your heart and in your gut. The ability to process information, the ability to remember, actually build memories, the actual ability to communicate with the other brains. It's all there. The same components are in all three. In fact, a lot of mental health problems now and depression, they're now finding come from the gut brain. The gut brain is sending the messages to the head going, I'm not all right here. And they're just starting to fight. And that's pure science. That's not some woo-woo stuff. That is pure science that they're finding that link.
I can't stomach what's going on.
Yes. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Right. And it's, I think it's interesting too, the locations of each of them, because the heart's right in the middle.
Yeah.
So it's that connecting point between our mind and our gut.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, it's wonderful. It's wonderful. I started to look a little bit at heart math because they're very interesting people, and they get you. I went to them and I started to feel so much emotional stuff that I'd shut down for a long time. But they get you to really connect with your heart. And as I say, I didn't realize I'd shut mine down so much, but I think I struggled a lot in my early days, got so worn down. I thought of walking away from spiritual work. I got so worn down. As happened, it's one of those things that's a bit unspoken, you know, because everybody wants to be so kind and light and help everybody. They don't talk about the times when it's a bit tough or nobody's bothered to pay you and you can't pay your bills or whatever. But the reality, when you talk to spiritual people, some of them really, really have some difficult times. And so, yeah, I had to rethink. I went straight into my gut, survival mode.
That makes a lot of sense. And I think too, that's where the heart is so important, because it is connecting that mind and the gut together. Because I mean, practically speaking, from a practical mind perspective, if you're not receiving your income, you're not going to be able to continue to do what you are supposed to be doing.
That's exactly it. And that's why I had to protect. And I was also losing a lot of weight. I was exhausted, and I was really suffering with exhaustion. And I think I just went into protecting myself and just and stop letting people were just showing up at my house and various other things. So I stepped out of it. But yeah, I've had to get back in touch, which is amazing. Bit of a revelation of thinking, oh, we're still learning lessons. We still are, aren't we?
Well, absolutely. And I hear you tapping into your own intuition, and you know, that guiding you to the heart math, which allowed you to connect to your heart more, which again connects your brain and your gut together again. Because I mean, it would make sense if your brain's doing one thing, your gut's doing the other, but there's no, the heart's shut down. There's no connection between the two of them.
That's exactly. And you know, one of the things, because as I say, I took a lot of time out to really work with people with this and look into it. And what I do with people, they've got to make a decision. I get them to bring it into their heart. And I've just found if your heart's not happy, you might as well forget it. But if your heart's happy, bring it into your head. What you're going to do, make a plan. You're going to sign up for that course. You're going to start the show. You're going to start the business. You're going to write the book. Bring it into your head. Make a plan. Okay. Then bring it into your gut. What action you're taking when you start in that action. So I found that sequence, but if the heart's not happy, I just go, right, let's forget that. You've got to have your happy heart with whatever you do. Otherwise, that's it. When you say people are procrastinating, their heart's not happy. Their heart doesn't want to do it. They're not enjoying it, or doesn't excite them or make their soul sing. So that's why we hold back.
Well, and I know for me, there are things that I think make sense to me, and it's connected to what I think my purpose is, and all of that kind of stuff. And I think again that heart, that guidance is more often than not. I find that my procrastination is not, this is a no, it's a hold up. Let's not race into this. There's some more information that you need.
Yeah.
So I find my heart is, I think my heart is more often than not my maybe center.
That's fabulous.
No, actually, I bet you, no, I don't know. I think the maybes are when they're all talking properly. When they're all talking properly, I can hear my maybes.
When you run it through all three, you start to get an answer. One of the ways it came to me to explain it was, imagine if you got three friends, they're all absolute geniuses in their own right. One of them will know what is right for you, that will make you happy, that will really bring joy to you. There's one that's really, really clever and can work out the logistics. You've got another one that will kick you up the butt, but it'll also protect you when you need protecting. Why would you only go to one when you've got all three? And that's how I started to think of our brains as three really good friends, all with genius expertise of their own. And that started to make sense. Now I run past all three and I'm making much better decisions.
That is excellent insight. So I want to take a quick pause here because I want to make sure that our listeners have an opportunity to connect to you. If this information is really making sense to them, I want them to be able to connect to you. What is the best way for our listeners to get in touch with you, to find your information?
Well, if you go to, you can take the spelling, will be listed here, Anne Jirsch. You can go to annejirsch.com or look me up on Facebook. I regularly put things on Facebook. I've also got a website, futurevisiontraining.com, and that's my newer work where we're looking further into the future because we need to be future orientated now.
Mm-hmm. Change is happening very rapidly. It has been for quite a while.
Yes.
And I think that, if we're not connected to all of the centers of our intuition, I think we're basically running through our world blind.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I started working with Future Vision more by chance. I was taking people into the past life, and we were trying to look at something from the past, and we had this sort of strange experience where all three of us jumped forward and saw the attack on the Twin Towers. This was 3 weeks before it happened. At the time, we didn't understand what we'd seen because nothing like it happened before.
Mm-hmm.
And when it happened a few weeks later, we were quite shell-shocked because we hadn't known enough to stop it. We didn't understand what we'd seen, but we started taking mind journeys into the future, and that changed my life, basically. That completely changed my life. We consistently kept seeing world events, not the odd one. We were consistently accurate. And then I started to take people into the future, and they would see maybe who they're married to or where they're living or career changes or career developments. And what really, really got me was that they were calling me up and it was happening much sooner. It's almost as if we were bringing the future into our current consciousness. And that really, really excited me. And almost overnight, my life completely changed. You know, it's like the whole world opened up because once I started working with this, it's as if all the right doors open. I got a 3-book deal. Nobody gets a 3-book deal where I'm from. Do you know what I mean? I come from a bad industrial town with a bad reputation. It's just, you know, people from where I'm from don't get 3-book deals. But things happened overnight for me. It really happened suddenly. And it's been startling. So looking into the future really was a big thing. But about 5 years ago, I started to, every time I looked, the rate of change was so fast. It was so dramatic. And I could see people not coping. They were not coping. And I knew they had a load more to come. There's loads of things. It's not any one thing going to create the change. The pace of life is changing at a dramatic rate. So I started to look into what we need, the strategies we need in order to thrive in the future. And, you know, intuition is one of them because we have so many choices. Look at your granny. She didn't have all these choices to make. She probably lived in one house all her life, probably did one job all her life. The amount of decisions we have to make on a daily basis, that alone creates a huge amount of stress. When we start tapping into our intuition, life starts to get a little bit easier. Looking into the future so we know our direction. So 3 times I've moved into houses that I'd seen in the future. The house I'm in now, I had no idea where it was, but I live in it now. So we constantly look at the future of property. If you want to have a look, go to Jirsch.com. There's a free download there. Go and have a look at your future home. Find out where it is. It's really made a huge difference. We look at future trends in your industry. Even if whatever you do, it will change. Whatever you do, it will change. I don't care what you do, it will change. And so we're in a time now where we have to anticipate the future. It's like Tony Robbins often said, keep doing what you're doing, you'll keep getting what you're getting. That's actually not true anymore. You keep doing what you're doing, you're going to slip backwards. We've actually got to evolve with the time, and we've got to make the right decisions. But once you get into that flow, and once you start glimpsing the future, you actually flow with life, and you start to steer to, rather than go, oh, I'm going to take 500 courses, or I'm going to be reading that book, or I'm going to do this, or I've got a phone, I've got to answer hundreds of emails. Stop. What's the one thing you need to do? What is your niche? What is your one thing that you're going to master? You don't need to be doing everything. And then it kind of calms down, life becomes a little more simple, easy, flowing. And so I spent 5 years working on that book. I usually spend 6 months on a book. I spent 5 years because I got so drawn into the multiple brain that absolutely blew me away. But also I like to talk to people that always seem to anticipate the future well. They never seem rushed. They seem to just kind of have great visions of the future. And so I set out to interview some pretty cool people and just get their take on it. And I put a whole load of strategies together because I think we really, 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 really need this now. The world isn't going to slow down. It's not going to slow down soon.
There's so much that you said that makes sense. Like I know for myself, I've looked at a house, and I didn't understand that it was connected to what we're talking about now. But I looked at a house and thinking, oh, I could live in that. And then 6 months later, I'm living in it. I'm like,
amazing. Amazing.
And then when you're talking about, keep doing what you're doing, you're going to get what you keep getting. But you're saying that we're actually moving backwards. I mean, what popped in my head when I'm listening to that is it's like pulling out all of your money out of the bank and stuffing it in your mattress. It actually loses value. It becomes less than what it originally was. And are we doing that to ourselves when we stay where we're at? Are we reducing all that we really could be by doing that?
Absolutely. And people are a bit frozen these days. We get frightened to make change, and we have just too many options. People either carry on doing what they're doing with no change, or they're trying to do everything. I mean, especially in the spiritual field. I mean, I run courses, but I keep saying to people, stop doing so many courses, even though I want them to come on my course. I'm telling people not to. I'm contradicting myself, but I meet people on a different course every week. They call it their toolbox. They're not mastering anything. They're not finding their niche. One of the things I do is I work with people to find what is your special thing. And I get to it eventually and I go, right, just make everything about that. You help women that have been through a horrible divorce, and anybody that's been through a horrible breakup just knows how broken you are, how confused you are. If that's your thing, then make it all about that. Forget everything else. Just make it that one thing. Just get into that one thing. Forget about everything else. You're not going to do weight loss and this and crystals and da-da-da. Stop. Make it about that one thing. Master one thing. Really master it, rather than jack of all trades, as we tend to say.
And that is one of the things that Terri teaches is, stay in your lane. Pick
Brilliant.
that one thing. And it, again, it makes a lot of sense too. And another thing that's making sense with what you're sharing is about the busyness. And I got so much to do. It's like that static. We've moved off of our radio channel, our one thing.
Yeah.
And there's nothing but static in that. And that it clutters your brain. It clutters your heart. It clutters your gut. It's just, you can't hear any of it through all of the static.
I think our brain filters haven't caught up with the time we're in. Just in the last 20 years, we've just been on information overload, and our brain filters haven't caught up with it. So we're constantly bombarded with noise and messages and people to talk to. One of the things I wrote a little while ago was how I went to a talk on sales, just got dragged along to a talk. And the guy said, all of you know 200 people. And everyone gasped in the audience, how am I supposed to know 200? And you had to write it down. Everyone was struggling because that was 1980. Now, if you say to people, you know 200, they go, I know thousands, because we connected to thousands. That was huge back then. And I sat with them. And in the end, you're writing down the milkman and the postman. You don't really know them, but you're struggling so much to think of 200 people. Now you just go on Facebook and you've got thousands there, or on Twitter or Instagram or whatever. So just the amount of connections we've got, it's overwhelming. We're just on overwhelm. And I'm noticing people are craving just sitting under a tree or sitting by a river. We're starting to crave simplicity. If you want to do well in the future, make people's life simpler, you know.
Oh, I love that. I love that. I love simplicity. That's at the end of the day, I want to be a contribution to people. I'm going to challenge the way they look at things. And at the end of the day, I want to help them simplify and make their life just give them that
We really need it. I need it. We all need it. We're all on overwhelm. And I think that the way we will go now is to just calm down. We've been just trying to, because all of a sudden we've got access to so much and it's too much. Stop. Find you. What is it you're here for? What is that thing that you're here to do?
Agreed. So, Anne, I absolutely loved our conversation, and I know this is something that could carry on for another hour. I want to make sure that our listeners are able to connect to you again. So if you could share the best website for our listeners to connect to you.
Go to Jirsch.com and you can get the spelling that will be on the show, Jirsch.com. And send me a message, because I do a free newsletter every month and I always put a good exercise in it. You know, I give away a lot of sort of good information in it. You know, I share if somebody else is doing something great, I mention it. It's not a big promo thing. It is literally to give a good exercise, what I feel we need at that time. So Jirsch.com or Facebook, find me. And I love hearing from people. I love talking to people. So give me a wave, say hello.
Awesome. And for those of you who are listening on the podcast, it's Anne, ANNE, Jirsch, JIRSCH.com. And thank you everyone for joining us today. I hope you enjoyed this brilliant information that Anne has shared with us, and that you learn how to connect to your intuition. And join us at Heartrepreneurs with Terri Levine on Facebook, and you're going to be able to connect with a whole lot of heart-based business people. And we look forward to seeing you there, and we'll look forward to seeing you on our next show. Thanks, and have an awesome day.
You've been listening to Heartrepreneur Radio, maximizing your personal and business results by leading with your heart, with your host, Terri Levine. This show is produced every week for your enjoyment and education. To make sure you never miss a single show, add us to your favorite RSS feed or subscribe in iTunes. You can also read Terri's latest blog posts at www.heartrepreneur.com/blog, or follow Terri on Twitter at MentorTerri, and on Facebook.com/Heartrepreneur Terri Levine. Your questions and comments are always welcome and appreciated. Send them to Terri on either Facebook or Twitter. Thank you for listening.